All right, back out here with the Zenith Cruzer, and I'm gonna rig the rudder cables now. Before I do that, first thing I need to do is start with mounting the horizontal or the vertical stabilizer first. After that, I'm thinking about lifting the nose up a little bit to get that nose wheel off the ground. They're connected to my rudder pedals, of course, and try to get everything centered there. Rig at least one control, connect that to the rudder pedals, run it back out through the fuselage, back to the rudder cable, see the length of the cables I'm going to need, and then do the same thing the other side. The more I started looking, as I put on the vertical stabilizer, I realized it's going to be tough to run this elevator trim cable. So I stopped on the vertical stabilizer, decided to refocus on this elevator trim cable just so I don't kind of lock myself into a bad position where I can't stow this away. I just solder sleeved my first connections coming off the trim servo to this gray wire here. This gray wire is not very long. It's going to connect to this other gray wire sticking out the back. Wrap this up, make it look nice and pretty, and this gray wire will come out the back where this little grommet is. What I came up with so far. Came out there, went back here. I did have to trim that little angle right there because when this comes down, you can't really see it all the way. You kind of get sandwiched in there, but anyway, it doesn't hit it now. So we'll get this connected to the two gray ones together. All right, got my D sub pins on here. I got my heat shrink tubing. I crimped all these on. Got a male and a female. Gonna join these together, heat shrink it, wrap it up one more time, and just stuff it down in there. All right, time to see if this the elevator trim servo will work. My wires on my gray cable are the black and white ones now. You can reverse them to make it go forward, backwards, or backwards, forward. Oh, I heard something move. Hey, I think it might be working. I hear it moving. Nice. Well, back in here is going to be my home for a little while. I think I'm going to go ahead and make up my rudder cables first. I'll run those down the center here and just get the links to the correct links on the back end at that point, and do that. And then there's going to be a lot of adjusting of these control rods going to the nose gear, and we'll have to find center and as we start rigging up the rudder at that point. But I'm going to go ahead and make up the ends for these guys and run some cables to the back. Having the access hole back here has been incredibly valuable. I don't regret this at all. All right, made it back out here again. Today is Friday, October 14th, I believe, and took a little time off. Had to work for a couple of days. I come back out here, think about what I want to do. I was going to go ahead and just crimp this on, and I still might. But I was looking at this, and a lot of things to consider, really. I'm not sure what order I want to do everything in. Here's all my my items I have to do, and decide when to do it. I guess they don't really give you much direction as far as this goes. Do I mount the vertical stabilizer now? Go ahead and put all these rivets in. There's some bolts that go down in there. Mount that, because I have to take the rudder back off to mount that. Go ahead and center the rudder before I mount the vertical stabilizer and connect all these guys. And I can disconnect them, of course, if I have to take the rudder back off later to reinstall the vertical stabilizer. But also the rudder stops, you have a plate they give you. I believe it goes like this according to the plans, but I have a hard time getting my stop that way without actually touching this other rivet. So I'll probably just go like this, so I can do it without actually touching the other rivet and put a stop in there. How to drill these holes into this right here, because I won't be able to get to the inside to drill out. So I'll probably get my hole finder or duplicate on another piece of aluminum, thinner sheet of aluminum, this whole pattern, and to copy it over to here, and then to adjust this where I need to for my rudder stops for my 20 degrees rudder deflection. Another thing to consider. Also, at what point I need to trim this hole out right here for my rudder cable exit. Also, this little guy goes inside of here to kind of guide the rudder cable so it doesn't rub up against the edges here. So I need to work on that, and this is obviously going to be too big for here, so I got to trim this guy down. And then on top of that, you have this plate, which will go right here, which is obviously way too big as well, so you have to trim that down. So a lot of things to do still. Again, in what order to do everything in, I'm not sure yet. So what I get done today? Well, several things actually. Vertical stabilizer is totally in place. Rudder is completely done. I drilled a little hole in the hinge I had forgot to do, just so the hinge pin don't come out. I got safety wire here, but I haven't actually tied it up yet. I'll get my pliers. I'm back at the house, and got both cables now, so they're ready to be the left and the right side. I haven't actually put these on this yet because I may want to slide some tubing right here, so I might not use that system that Zenith tells you to use. I might do something else with some like aluminum or nylon tubing and some idle clamps. We'll see. I might try to simplify that process. So we're going to do that next, and I got neutral right now. The wheels straight ahead. I got all my degrees. I did that today with my phone, a little app on my phone. I got like 22 degrees to the right, maybe about 27 or so to the left. So we should be good there. Again, I think the nose wheel will restrict us. We'll see. That's what I've been told anyway. So we'll see how that works out next, and we'll see you next time. All right, just showed you a little time lapse of how I went about putting this on here. I just brought my table up along with my little portable vise and put this little end connection on. Threw it in my vise, and I just used this little guy, I'm not sure if you can see it, to crimp this guy in place. As far as this part goes over here, I just used some of that brake tubing. I enlarged this hole a little bit. I'm gonna go right in the middle and just put AN3 bolt right here. All right, so I kind of tightened my rudder cables, or trying to tighten them, and unfortunately I might have one that's a little bit too short. So, and these are the control rods that go from the rudder pedals to the nose wheel. I couldn't get these to work out right either. When my rudder pedals were 90 degrees, these things were really far off. And then I noticed one of these is longer than the others. So I had them switched to the wrong side, so I'm going to switch them to the right side. Even with this change, I still think one of my cables are going to be too short, as much as I cannot stand making new cables. Just going to try to show you what I'm talking about. I went ahead and swapped out these control rods. They're on the right side now. The shorter one goes on this side over here, which is closer to the firewall. Longer one, of course, is further from the firewall, so of course that one would be longer. All right, got my cable back from Aircraft Spruce. Got that installed, a little bit longer now. Something I wanted to note is this is not typical cable you get at the hardware store. This is some special spec cable, so definitely go to Aircraft Spruce or somewhere like that to get this cable. It's not something you get from the hardware store. Again, different spec. Also, from Aircraft Spruce, I did get my tension gauge a little bit early. Today's like October 28th, so it got a little bit faster than I thought. Next thing I'm going to do is release the neutral position on the rudder and see what happens when I push the rudder pedals back and forth. See if I get all my throws at this point. See if I'm going to be restricted by the control rods going to the nose wheel there. Feels like I've been out here all month long just working on the rudder. Again, it's end of October already, so I'm not sure why it's taken so long, but it just is. What I decided I needed to do was to get the nose wheel off the ground. so it's actually not touching the ground, even though it kind of looks like it is. Just use some stands and a ratcheting strap. It just barely has to come off the ground, so I was able to swivel this nose wheel back and forth. And there is one place where it's hitting where I'm not quite getting the 20 degrees. So I got to trim some of that out back in there, and I'm going to do that next just so I get all my throws on my rudder. Getting about 17 degrees. I need 20. Boy, it's been a long day, I tell you. I end up trimming off that piece of aluminum and that little plastic block, and it gave me another 1.5 degrees or so. I was almost at 19, not quite, but probably almost at 19 degrees after I trimmed that off both sides. Next thing that was stopping me is a little jam nut, and that's what we thought was going to happen. The little jam nut wants to go back into these little sliders here, and the jam nut won't fit into the sliders. It hits this, so it limits my travel again. So I tried about 3 different ways of doing it without removing these sliders, enlarging this hole and just doing different things. And after about 3 or 4 hours, I decided, okay, I'm done. I'm getting rid of these sliders, and I have to even still enlarge this little hole in there, and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. But I still had to enlarge that hole, kind of wallow it out just a little bit, just so those jam nuts fit down in there. I'll do like Scott did in Australia and just build like a little boot inside and be done with it. All right, rudder's pretty much completed for the most part, and I end up going to the right. 20 degrees is what the plans have you, plus or minus 1 degree for the rudder throw. Going to the right, I got about 20.5 or so almost 21. I was really hoping to shoot for 21, even 22 maybe, but 20.5 is best I could get. Going to the left, 22 degrees actually. So, but right now I'm putting in the stops. You can kind of see right here how I'm finding the holes. The plates, a rudder stop does not have the pre-drilled holes in them, so I got to match the holes from underneath here to go into here. But you can see my method. And the boots for the control rods, where I had to make those a little bit larger, took the slides out. Hopefully the boots will be here tomorrow or the next day. Tomorrow is Halloween, and we'll work on it a little bit again tomorrow, but rudder's pretty much complete.